Hey, MSM Fort Worth. I hope y'all are doing well. This series has been a lot of fun. We got to dive into why we believe. Week 1, we talked about why we believe that Jesus actually did resurrect, raised from the dead after he was buried in a tomb. This past week, you got to hear from Ethan on why we believe in the Bible. This week, we're going to talk about why we believe in a creator, an intelligent being that created the universe and everything in it. It's often thought that religion and science are opposing forces. You believe in one or the other, but not both. This couldn't be further from the truth. Science actually gives us great reasons to believe there is a God who created the entire universe, including each one of us. In fact, the more that we discover about the natural world, the more we realize that Psalm chapter 19, verses 1 and 2 is true. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. See, there is evidence for a designer, from the smallest DNA strand to the vast universe filled with countless galaxies. Let's consider just a few scientific findings that confirm the existence of a creator. 1. Cosmology. So cosmology is the study of big things, the cosmos, the universe. But before we see how this points to the existence of God, let's talk about something called logical syllogism. So, track with me here. Men are mortal. That's the first statement. Socrates is a man. That's the second statement. So if we follow that logic, therefore, Socrates is mortal. It's simple, right? If all men are mortal and Socrates is a man, then he must be mortal. You can use this in an argument for the existence of God called the Cosmological Argument. It goes like this. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. All right, let's take that line by line. First one. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. This statement should be obvious. Things don't just come into existence uncaused for no reason. If they do, why don't we observe it happening all the time? I know money doesn't just show up in my wallet when I want it to or anything like that. Effects always have causes. It's how the universe works. It's how science is possible. It certainly makes sense to believe our first premise, whatever begins to exist has a cause. Second one. The universe began to exist. According to modern cosmology, the universe has not been here forever, but came into existence at some point in time in the past. We're not going to argue about how old the universe is, just that it isn't eternal. There are good reasons to think this is true from science and philosophy. Two pieces of scientific evidence to support this are 1, Big Bang cosmology, and 2, the second law of thermodynamics. Go look these up on your own and see how these support what we're talking about here, that the universe did begin to exist. Big Bang cosmology and the second law of thermodynamics. Don't have time to dive into it right now. But after those two statements, we can then conclude, therefore, that the universe has a cause. This logically follows from the first two premises that we said. Now, let's see what the cause of the universe could be like. Well, it must be pretty powerful to bring an entire universe into existence. It would have to be pretty smart, too. It couldn't be made up of any of the stuff of the universe, so it must be non-physical. Time began at the first moment of creation, so the cause of the universe would have to be timeless. Also, this cause must be personal, to choose to bring the universe into existence. Here's the remarkable conclusion. The cause is extremely powerful, super smart, immaterial, timeless, and personal. Sounds a lot like God, doesn't it? Everything that begins to exist needs a cause for its existence. And the best explanation for the beginning of the universe is God. Of course, this argument doesn't take us all the way to the God of the Bible, but it rules out atheism as a plausible explanation, since atheism has no sufficient cause for the origin of the universe. And it does remarkably match up with Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created. After all, if there is a beginning to the universe, there must be a beginner. Now, let's look at another piece of scientific argument for God's existence. This is called the fine-tuning argument. So, picture this with me. You're hiking through the mountains and discover an abandoned cabin. As you enter it, you notice something unusual. The refrigerator is filled with your favorite foods. The cabin's temperature is set to your liking. Your favorite song is playing. And all your favorite books are sitting on the table. What conclusions would you draw? Well, since random chance could never bring so many factors together, you would rightly conclude that the cabin was prepared in advance with you in mind. Similarly, the laws of nature appear to be prepared with humans in mind. In the 20th century, scientists discovered the existence of multiple physical laws that must each be just right for life to exist in the universe. These laws can be written as mathematical equations, and there are certain values in these equations that are fixed, which are known as constants. The values of these constants are so delicate that if they were off by the tiniest amount, life would not be possible in the universe. This is what is meant by this fine-tuning of the universe. Let's look at one example. We're all familiar with gravity. What goes up must come down. If the gravitational constant had been a little weaker, stars and planets would not have formed, and so life would be impossible. If it were slightly stronger, the entire universe would have collapsed into itself after this Big Bang, after the start of creation. And the gravitational constant is just one of many constants that must be perfectly aligned to allow life in the universe. But why is the universe so finely tuned for life? There's three possible explanations for fine tuning: necessity, chance, or design. So number one, necessity. Did the constants of nature absolutely have to be the values there are? There is no reason to think so. The constants could have been different, and if so, the laws of nature would have been different as well, which would make complex life impossible. So necessity, out. Chance. Perhaps we just got incredibly lucky, and the constants just happened to be, life permitting, by chance. Could we have possibly won the lottery? The odds of this happening would be like having a sea of trillions and trillions of blue marbles randomly reaching in and pulling out the one red marble. That is how delicately fine-tuned our universe is for life, and how ridiculously improbable it is to occur by chance. So, if we rule out necessity and chance, then design is the only option left. The universe is fine-tuned for life because a divine intellect designed it that way. God set the natural constants to permit life in his universe. In other words, the fine-tuning of the universe best points to the existence of a fine tuner. So these are just a few powerful arguments for a creator, and believe it or not, there are many more. Science is not against faith, but when done properly, it confirms it. And this matters for how we view ourselves as part of God's creation. In Psalm 8, 3-4, David reflects on the wonder of God's concern for mankind in light of creation. When I look at the heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him? Given the vastness and complexity of the universe, David is in awe that God even cares about mankind, and yet he does. David continues, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. So what does this all mean? You're not a grand cosmic accident, the result of blind evolutionary processes. God designed the universe with us in mind and created you with great care. Your life has value and purpose. The world we inhabit claims that our value comes from money, fame, influence, and appearance, but God has a different standard. Human value comes from the fact that you were made in the image of a perfectly good and all-knowing creator. If you ever feel worthless, just look around the mountains and the trees, the stars in the sky, and remember what King David said. The God who created all this deeply cares about you. Have a great week, MSM.